Today's drywall video is just finishing. We have a small room, maybe 10 foot by 12 foot, with a small closet. The customer had already hung the drywall. He didn't hang it very well, and the screw pattern, it's not the best, and the screws are sticking out quite a bit. So I'm gonna have to screw off and do a ton of pre-fill to kind of catch it up to where it needs to be. Prep is always crucial. I mean, just correcting his mistakes alone is gonna take me an hour, hour and a half, which is frustrating. So if you would have hung it correctly the first time, you can save a lot of time with drywall. So today we're gonna be finishing, right? So I'm gonna pre-fill, then I'm gonna tape on the walls. I'm gonna first and second coat, and then I'm gonna go right into the Holy Smooth. On the ceilings, we're gonna go third, potentially fourth coat before we do texture, because ceilings with the texture that I'm gonna be using, we want it more flat and just more of a pristine finish. On the walls, it doesn't necessarily have to be as nice because the Holy Smooth that we use, the texture, covers a lot, and it's a pretty cool texture. And that some of the past videos I've used that texture on the walls. It's a pretty cool texture to hide stuff and any bumps and imperfections. So again, I'd love you guys to subscribe, comment, share these videos. This video and other videos I've had are how to drywall, how to learn how to drywall, but what I'm trying to show you is ways to make money. This job's paying $550. I'm gonna have it done in 7 hours, and that's probably with a lunch break, so less. So that's like 80 bucks an hour. How many of you can sit there and say you make $80 an hour or make your own schedule? I always take weekends off. Let's say I want a Tuesday off or anything. I just take it off. How many of you can sit there and say that you have that luxury? Probably not a whole lot. What I'm suggesting is start with these little ideas. I've offered a few already, even if it's drywall, just little patches after work. Take these little ideas, keep your full-time job, do these little ideas. Once these little ideas prove themselves to make enough income to support yourself, quit your job. Do that as quick as possible. Quit your job as quick as possible once you prove that you can earn the money, and your whole life is going to change. Your mindset, everything, when you just don't have to report to a boss or worry about a paycheck every other week, or I mean, just everything changes. It's such a beautiful concept. Be your own boss, do your own thing. Any hobby you have can make full-time money. We're gonna cut into me doing drywall, and I'm gonna show you how to do it, and we'll go from there. All right, here's today's project. If you see these big gaps, okay, this is that pre-fill I was talking about. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but you know, it's just annoying to fix. Up here, a blowout. It's not too bad. Outlet just not properly routed correctly. See that blowout there? Or butt joints. Now this is a real bad butt joint here. You see that? It's a step, it goes like that. That's just gonna be really, we're gonna have to take that fill out to like forever, just to cover that. So that's today's project. We can get it set up, and then we'll do like a time lapse, and I'll talk over it. All right, we'll talk a little bit about butt prep. Okay, so this is a butt joint here. Do you see that shadow that this light is making, especially right there? Okay, we just have floppy paper. It's just kind of, this got roughed up. Whenever you do any kind of taping, quality prep, you want to take your blade and cut it at an angle, every single edge, and you want to cut those things off. So now when we take our light, and it's not really a light test, but those bumps are gone. So basically when I run my knife down this, my knife isn't going to get caught on these jagged edges and cause ripples. Now when I do it in that particular area, the blade's going to run smooth. We're not going to have bubbling. So again, all butt joints, anything that's damaged, recessed joints you don't need to unless they're damaged, but we're going to just take our blade and go sideways and just take out a little triangle. And you want to do that on both sides. So that's proper butt preparation.
Here I'm just fixing all the screws. I mean, the whole thing was just messed up for the screws. I'm also adding just a bit of drywall because he wanted to wrap that window and just didn't know that he needed to do that.
All right, I'm ready to start pre-fill. Pre-fill, I always use all-purpose. You also use tape layer for this. Now, I'm not gonna mix it. I'm gonna leave it just like this because it's a little thicker and a little more clumpier so it can bind to those big gaps we have. So I'm gonna leave it just like that, scoop it out, and put it on as you're gonna see. Once I'm done and ready for tape, then I'll add a little bit of water to it, mix it up, and then we'll tape coat.
So with pre-fill, you really can put it anywhere you want. Obviously, you want it in the big gaps, but the important part about pre-fill is once you want to glob it in there, really get it in all the cracks, but then you want to wipe it tight as if it were never there, and just have the mud inside the crack and just wipe it really tight.
If you're trying to get this project done in one day, you always do the flat tape first, okay? Leave the corners, so do your flat tape or your reset or your butts and recess joint, then move on to something else like your bead, okay? Because that'll give this time to dry so you can overlap the corner so you don't screw up that tape there.
Here I'm three-way wrapping the window, and that just means I put 3 because they're going to do a window sill on the bottom there. It's important that you also tape all of your bead. It's just a better way to help prevent cracking. Then here I'm doing the edges. If I wouldn't have waited for that flat tape to dry, as I run my tools across it, that tape would peel back and it would just look like a total mess. So that's why it's important to wait before you do the corners.
Okay, we have tape layer done on our flats, our butts, and our corners. If you notice, I spend more time on my corners here. It just makes them look nice and you can end that tape really well. Okay, so this is a good time to take a lunch or to just make a couple phone calls. I'm gonna give this about half hour to an hour to dry. Basically what's gonna happen next is I'm gonna take my mud box and fill these joints and fill the butt joints, right? So that's what we're gonna do next, but we just need this tape layer here to dry a little bit and the bead. We need that to dry because that needs probably 1 or 2 more coats for the day's through. So we're gonna take some lunch here and I'll be back. Always bring your lunch from home. Just do yourself a favor, save some money, and bring it from home.
So this is the very first finish coat. Don't get too hung up on how it looks. It doesn't need to be super smooth. It can be clumpy a little bit. The edges can have a step in them. It's just the first coat. You're going to do more. Don't get too concerned about it.
All right, this completes our first coat or third coat, depending on how you look at it. Pre-filled tape coat, so whatever. So our first final coat, right? I'm gonna give this half hour to dry. I have lots of fans in here, 3 of them. So that's gonna help things dry. So give this about half hour, then I'm gonna go over with my bigger box, okay? And then after that, the walls will be done. I'm gonna wait another half hour, then I can start texturing the walls. Well, the ceiling is drying because this is a butt joint, so that's going to need the most work here. These recessed joints probably are going to be 2 fills and I can texture over it. But right here is going to need the most work so you don't see it. So this will probably need 3 or 4 coats.
This is going to be the final coat for the walls, so you kind of want to make it as smooth as possible. That Holy Smooth texture that goes on it does an amazing job with covering things. So it doesn't need to look perfect, but just as good as you can.
All right, this basically completes the walls. All right, these joints are perfectly, if we put a knife up to it, it's wet, so I don't want to mess it up. But it's filled, okay? One thing we need to do to the walls, we're gonna leave about a half hour, but these butt joints, I'm gonna do another coat down the middle, but I can go right on top of that with texture. So how we have this kind of tape and bump still, I've done that on purpose because I wanted to fill here. So this is really thick. So in about a half hour, we're gonna do a coat there and a coat here. This butt joint turned out really good, but still I'll do another coat in the middle. But that's it. So basically we're gonna let that dry a half hour, then I'm gonna start texture on the walls.
Holy Smooth is hard to explain how you put it on, but you basically just get kind of a little bit on your knife and you wipe it really fast. And it kind of creates a little bit of a skip mark, and then you just keep wiping it. But you're just trying to get it really smooth with every so often just kind of imperfections and holes. All right, I'm just under 6 hours. This includes my lunch break and all of dry time today. Okay, we're fully filled here, fully textured. It rained outside, so I'm just not gonna get done today, unfortunately, because of dry time. The moisture is just holding in the air. So we're gonna pause, we're gonna come back tomorrow, but we have, let's see here, 15 minutes of sanding on the wall, texture, an hour, let that dry a half hour. So total project's gonna be probably 7.5 hours. Anyway, this is it so far, and I'll break and be back tomorrow. Okay, we're back this morning. We're pretty much dry on the walls, dry enough to sand. I just wanted to show you this butt joint. I haven't touched it again. So do you see the paper layer here still? Again, I've done that on purpose. When you do butt joints, the best way to do it is do your fill first there. So we're filling, because a butt joint, that's always gonna be a high point there on a butt joint, always. So we always do our fills like this and like this first, and we try to stay as little mud as possible here. So when we put our knife up to it, okay? So right now, that butt joint is basically perfect. I just need to put some mud here, a layer of mud to fix this tape. But look at that, we're perfect. We're a little light there, but I've done that on purpose, right? So I have a fill there to cover that tape. But that butt is just perfect. All right, I'm gonna show you how to do this particular ceiling texture. We need 2 hawks. Get these at Home Depot for $10 each or something. So I want this mud fairly thick. See how it's not really falling off my knife? Okay, fairly thick. And you just add water to this and mix it. And that gives you how thick or thin you need it. Now here we're gonna I call it kind of a medium layer. We did a patch before. Where it was a really thin layer. So here we're just gonna do a medium layer. And I'm just gonna do a small section here, and then I'll time lapse it. But basically what we're gonna be doing is there are 2 hawks, one's empty, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it'll get wet here in a minute. But we're just gonna place them together and peel them apart. See how it makes these like peaks, okay? So then you take that and you just transfer the peaks to the ceiling. Just a light stomp. So just a really light. And how hard you push and how much mud is on your hawks changes this texture. So once you do it enough, you'll know, what type of texture that you want. So I'm just going to do that small section for this video, for this portion. I have a larger knife, but in this case I'm just going to use my 12 here. You'll still use the larger knife. And then you just softly wipe. I always do my edges first. Kind of cleans up any mess we have in the edges that hides it. What's cool is if you can see that, the little bumps in the knife, if we had a bald spot on an edge or something, you can just transfer that there and it'll actually put texture back on the wall if you have a bald spot. Done my edges. Now I'm just super softly wiping. I'm not really trying to take material off.
just softly wiping. So this is the texture up close. Okay, and again, how hard you push that hawk up or how thick it was on your hawk, you're gonna get larger of these, or how wet or dry, okay, or dry time. Okay, there's a million factors, but that's how we've done it. This is one of my favorites, and that is pretty standard in Utah as far as the look. All right, we have texture completed on the ceiling. You can see that everywhere. Now I'm gonna wait about a half hour and then wet sand it. Wet sanding is extremely complicated, and unless you know how to do it, you probably should wait 24 hours of sanding. Okay, because wet sanding, you can easily dig into this and really mess it up. So if you don't know, but basically when we sand, these lines like here, those just come with the knife. Okay, no matter what you do, you get them, just every so often. So those are the majority of what we're gonna be sanding. So I'm gonna wait about a half hour, get all my fans in here, then I'm gonna wet sand everything, sand here, and with my power sander, it just goes, I mean, we're gonna spend 15 minutes sanding. It's gonna go really fast. I'm gonna stop the video there. I just don't want it to be too long. Basically, I waited about a half hour, and then I use my power sander on the ceiling and walls, and it goes crazy fast, really fast. I also use a sponge like this, okay? And I do the top edges and the corners, and that's real critical for just getting a real crisp edge. Please like, comment about what you have learned or a past job you have done that didn't go so well, or comment about what you'd like to see. Comments really help with the YouTube algorithm so my videos can get out there, so that would be greatly appreciated. Comment about what I just mentioned, like this video, subscribe if you want to see more content about how to make money. Thanks.